What's up, everybody? Welcome to Respect Our Authority Wisecrack South Park podcast. My name is Jared, and today we're breaking down the finale to Season 22. It's Season 22, Episode 10, Bike Parade. As always, I'm going to go around... Introducing the rest of the authoritarians, we got Jacob.
Hello, hello.
And Lux.
Yo.
And Amanda.
Hey.
Work on his voicemail.
Ryan did leave... He did leave a score, I think. I can't remember, actually.
Personal score.
I think so, yes. Not. He didn't predict any of our scores, though, no.
All right, well, let's do that first. I think... Jacob, how about you do the guessing this time?
Oh, my God. I think it's going to be a... B across the board. Weird loose ends, but that's my guess is... Actually, maybe Lux is going to go for a B minus.
Ooh. All right.
Maybe.
All right, well...
Really mixed feelings about this episode. I think Jacob's about right with it being a B. It was... Oh, yeah. There were things I liked. It was almost one of those things where like it would do something I really liked and then do something that made me extremely annoyed almost every other scene. Until it made me want to go, drove me fucking insane. But I did laugh a lot, which was good. So yeah, I guess a B seems right for me.
Interesting. I'm interested to hear about these very strong feelings. All right, Amanda, what about you?
I'm gonna go C+.
Ooh.
I think just because the season was so good, this episode just felt really weak in comparison. Like Jacob said, a lot of loose ends. It felt like they were trying to do too much again, but like even worse than usual. It felt like scatterbrained. Like it felt like
a hodgepodge.
Yeah. So C+.
Yeah, I think I would give it a B. I think that there are a lot of the metaphors seem very mixed, and I'm excited to dive into them. It wasn't what I was hoping for this two-parter, but I don't know. Some of the callbacks to earlier in the season I felt were a bit forced. Didn't really think it was necessary. And ultimately, I feel like I don't really entirely get what they were going for. I think I sort of do. That's why I'm really excited to talk about it with you guys. But what about you, Jacob?
Yeah, I think I give it a solid B, too. I kind of had some trouble... There was, I enjoyed it more the second time. It's almost every episode this season has been that way for me. But there were some loose ends that I wish were cleaned up a little bit better. But for the most part, there were some good, solid jokes where I'm like laughing out loud. And I think that's always fun. And then we got a lot of Lux in this episode. Lux himself was physically in the episode. We have a conspiracy theory that South Park, Matt and Trey are listening to the podcast.
Yeah, how does that make you... So for those of you who don't know what Lux looks like, imagine the second guy that goes to Randy to buy weed. That's what Lux looks like, and that's what he wears.
Mitch, I'll send this
Lux,
to you to put on...
I wear a jacket like a regular person.
Okay.
We've got to put this in the podcast when we distribute it. We'll put some links to these photos. But like... This is you, man. I know you. Where they talk about having to buy supplies for the rally, so to speak, like to buy the poster boards and the glitter pens and all that shit. And I'm like, you talked about that in the last episode, Lux.
Yeah, we had that. There's a bunch of stuff that we referenced in the podcast
Christmas.
that came up, like bringing back old characters. And we had a email about member berries, and then they made the member berries reference. Like, they've really been listening.
Maybe
we've been hacked.
Maybe
We've been hacked. It's Bezos.
Yeah, maybe this is their way of saying, you know what, Lux, you were right about Tweak in the anxiety episode.
They conceded.
Hell yeah. I'm still waiting on my letter, but it's a nice. This is a nice gesture. It's a good start.
You know, we miss Ryan a lot, and we had him leave a proper voicemail for us too. So let's hear what Ryan's got to say about this episode.
What up, authoritarians? It's your boy Ryan. Just watched the finale of South Park, and I thought it was freaking hilarious. I thought it was a great finale to a really, really, really funny season. The actual ending of the episode, I was delighted to find out that everyone's solution to the problem was just smoke a lot of weed. Yeah, do that. You know, I that means my life's on the right track, apparently. However, I did think the ending was a big cop-out. You know, there's no way that's going to actually happen, that's going to be society's answer to our robot problem and the Amazon problem and the capitalism versus socialism problem. But still thought it was hilarious. Also, I wish they'd gone further on trying to find out reasons the bike parade was offensive. They started that, and the one reason they gave was that it was like nihilist event, which they totally are, and they recruited Timmy and Jimmy to get outraged for them. That's how
Another writing job at South Park.
There we go.
You know, whatever. Also, I'd like to give a full-throated and what do you call it? Sympathetic reaching of my hand to Jeff Bezos for his portrayal in this episode. Jesus, he got the shaft. He has done nothing but help my life immensely and your life. Don't deny it. Jeff Bezos has helped you.
That's true.
Anyway, so, sorry, I'm a scab for on you guys on the Authoritarian podcast. But hey, I'm going to try and make it next season for sure. I'm going to find a way to make it happen that I can get on. Anyway, I love everybody on the pod. I love everyone listening to the pod, and I love Matt and Trey and South Park. I give this episode an A-, and I give the whole season a B+. Peace out.
Wow.
Man,
I miss Ryan so much, man.
a mic drop from Ryan.
With him.
R.I.P. Ryan.
Yeah. All right, so let's go into a recap. The kids awaken to find themselves fulfilled as they provided Jeff Bezos with a new workforce that's broken the strike, and in return, he gave them their stuff, especially Butters, whose new bike is the one needs to buy weed to cope with the strike. The demand is so intense, Towley and Randy decide to start delivering weed with e-scooters. Kenny bows out of the boys' themed bike parade due to his newfound Marxist beliefs. Wait, hold on a second. Kenny bows out of the boys' themed bike parade due to his new Marxist beliefs. The boys are about to give up when they decide if they're not going to win the bike parade, they're going to get, and the strikers get more pressure from their families to cross the picket line. Let me take that again. Bezos defeats Josh the Marxist box, and the strikers get more pressure from their phone is out of business. Santa comes down to fulfill them with a Christmas miracle, but once he hears about the outrage mob expelling Mr. Hanky, he abandons them. The high as shit on Tegrity Weed. In the end, the bike parade happens, and Randy pitches Tegrity Weed again. End of season. And Amazon, and I want to start this conversation talking about Tegrity Farms. So the first thing that we see happen is Sharon's like, look, your weed farm idea just didn't work out, okay? You barely sell to 2 people a day. And then Randy says, it's the stupid Amazon strike. I rely on things for marketing. A small business needs products for exposure, and until those idiots get back to work, small businesses are going to suffer. And then we see that, in fact, the strike has helped his business because someone comes to buy weed, and then more people come to buy weed. And then, of course, Tegrity Weed becomes a retailer that ships things to your door, not unlike Amazon. And what do you guys think is the message here?
Jeff Bezos. We're seeing this, this supply and the logistics have reached a moment's notice. And you're also seeing that sort of like let's see if I think what you're seeing is he starts to masquerade this thing of like, this is great for society for you to be able to get anything that you want at any moment. I'm kind of losing my train of thought here, but I think I do have an idea around kind of how Randy and Jeff Bezos are sort of paralleling one another.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think. Oh, that's a weird echo.
Whoa.
Sorry, but yeah, I think that makes sense because they're sort of making an argument similar to I talked about the Walmart episode last time, and I think it's similar again. That like. One, you throw off the chains of like one giant internet supplier, another one just takes its place.
And these addictions,
the infrastructure's there to make that happen, sort of no matter what.
And that kind of
because Cartman has lines that say, Jeff Bezos, how can anybody say anything negative about a guy who literally gave us everything we could ever want?
Yeah, what could be bad about that?
He did set a group of rabid consumerist children on a Marxist box.
To go,
he
killed Kenny.
It wasn't a purely good portrayal.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't a purely good portrayal, but I think that there's more ambiguity to it than simply, the progress, the quote. Because once again, here we have another like Tegrity versus progress thing. So we have Jeff Bezos telling Josh the Marxist box, you are the only thing standing between us and economic progress. And then we have Randy who is saying, fuck your economic progress. We got Tegrity. But then at the end, the very last line of the episode is, Tegrity Weed coming to a giant online retailer near you. So it's like
it's gone full circle.
So claims to progress are as just as much bullshit as claims to integrity and vice versa.
And yeah, we see that a lot throughout the episode. First of all, the point I was going to make is that we see addictions and these distractions just migrating from one thing to the next. So massive consumerism, you're really focused on getting your package delivered, and instead it migrates to what seems just chill. Fuck it, dude, let's go bowling, or fuck it, dude, let's just smoke some integrity. But it just migrates. That addiction migrates there, and everyone is sort of on that new opium of the masses.
You
But
mean
then
weed?
Weed now, right? Like weed now being this new addiction that we have. So just that migration, but rating in like progress and integrity, and it's good for the world and it's good for consumers. Even the kids, when they're starting to like boycott the parade, they're like, "Hey, this could be good for everybody. We're not doing it to be selfish. We're doing it because everyone's going to need to be outraged about this parade." You're just masquerading and using that as marketing, the same way the scooters use, or that progress is masquerading what really is pretty bad for people.
Well, yeah, I mean that sort of calls back to sort of a classic argument about like reform versus revolution, like communist stuff, until it becomes big enough or viable enough that capitalism can just like absorb it, basically. Like what you're saying, like with Integrity, he starts off as like this radical alternative to Amazon, and everyone's like, yeah, it's this new different thing. But then he becomes Amazon over the course of the episode, and in the same kind of way, like all the different in South Park and broadly speaking.
But I think that the distinction to make here is that what Matt and Trey are likely saying is that it's not because capitalism is so entrenched in all of us, and it's an institution that's so so overbearing that it makes it so that all dissent gets commodified and ultimately changes nothing. I think they're probably pointing more toward this is human nature. Look at these girls who love this one guy with the cool bike, and then once Butters is literally peacocking with another bike, she goes to him. So I think that...
And the consumerism, the kids are pre-programmed in a way to be consumers. Like, no, please don't give in to your consumerism, kids.
Right, so that was another thing. Like, are they trying to say when Josh the Marxist box gets destroyed by the kids, are they... Because right before that, the Marxist box says people aren't just consumers, and it's almost as if Jeff Bezos is saying, I'm going to prove you wrong because I've got these kids, who are young and supposedly not yet programmed. So, and they are kind of the most essentially human, and they're going to give in to their consumerist urges and prove to you that they are not more than consumers.
Well, I think that you can also read that the opposite way, like the exact opposite way, are hyper programmed to want things. Like all of these little kids always just like want a cool box and the thing that's in it.
Sure.
Like that's how they're taught to be by like, capital and the stories we all tell kids about how the world, people aren't just consumers, and Bezos is like, well, I turned them into those. And so now they're going to eat your body. And that's just how it goes.
Yeah, I can see it either way.
The market forces play a big role in this whole play between Integrity and the Anderson farm, who's breaking the law and breaking the rules and saying, hey, there's no limit to how much weed you can buy here. Then you've got this many pieces in play around demand and supply and oversupply, including what we saw with that scooters
economic shit in this season. And I think also, we can get this later, but I think that in some way or another, this is my big conclusion I came to after watching this episode and yelling at it for a while.
How's that, Lux?
Okay, so the show, like you said, right, it's all about these different addictions, right? Like we shift from being addicted to ordering stuff to addicted to weed, whatever. And it's sort of, the show, I think, is conflating and making sort of a mistake, and maybe an intentional conflation of stress and anxiety. Like the world we live in puts on for other times, and for a lot of the people in the show later in the season, it's Amazon, and it becomes weed. And it's all about sort of the first half of the season making this argument, like, look at all these terrible things that are happening in the world. And oh boy, this is so much. And then it's like, well, how do we cope with it? We kind of like have these different stress coping mechanisms, but some makes our individual lives better, but probably as a society creates a lot of conditions that aren't so good. And maybe are worth problematizing, but it reduces stress in a way that makes like the rest of life bearable. And so we let it happen. And eventually something else replaces that, which in this case is weed. But like, that's just a way of avoiding all like the various stresses that come with just being alive in 2018.
Got it.
I thought about this a lot for a while because I was really confused with what this episode was trying to do, and I really wanted it to make sense.
Well, I'm still confused too. I don't understand why why the fulfillment center leaves at the end, or we're meant to believe that Jeff Bezos is defeated because Integrity overtakes them, and they're saying, "Fuck you, get the fulfillment center out of there." You're
distracted
too stoned to
weed.
want it. I don't. Yeah. What's really happening?
The threads were just like unfurl all the different things that were going on. And like this is just one example. I feel like there were just a lot of unnecessary like turns in plot, like by starting the episode with Randy's business being bad and then 5 seconds later establishing a problem that then stops existing 5 seconds later. So just from like a story level, I felt like it would have made more sense to have him start off with the business like exploding, and like they did that a lot. Like they established problems and then like solved them, or established like brought in solutions like Santa Claus and then took them away like 5 seconds later, which just made it really messy.
Yeah, this is sort of what I was referring to at the beginning, and I was like, they would do things I really liked and then like fucking rip them away in a way that drove me insane. And the Santa Claus thing's a perfect example. I was like, oh great, we're gonna tie this back together. Maybe like they have to do a thing with Mr. Hanky or something, or like having Santa show up and like the power of Santa banishes Jeff Bezos. Like there's so many ways this can go that are interesting that I'm into. And then it was like, he's gonna yell some shit at you and then leave.
I did laugh the most at that moment. But yeah, like just to recap all the stuff that is going on in the episode, you got Tegrity becoming Amazon, Bezos and his surveillance, Josh and the strike.
Tegrity Weed.
Tegrity Weed. I'm sorry. Yeah, Tegrity Weed. But Josh and the strike, the bike parade, you got Santa coming in. There's this whole kind of mini thread of how to get offended and how to boycott the parade or how to make it offensive.
There's the Scottish guy's son.
The Scottish guy's son, yeah.
Is used to winning the bike parade.
Right. And then you've got the
Butters' badass bike.
A little bit of the school shooting mention.
And then there's Butters' thing with his dad and their relationship, and
right.
Even there's like one line where
you didn't even mention the mall guys.
The mall
the
guys.
Zombies, yeah.
Gerald all of a sudden starts working at Amazon again because he says, "Yeah, I mean, He
cut to start with, just putting my nomination in for the South Park Writers Room. Cut out the bike parade and just have Christmas be the consumerist thing that everybody is looking forward to. Like that's so much simpler.
For sure.
Then the only problem is they can't do this whole canceled thing because canceling Christmas is extremely in the narrative.
I think it would almost be better to cancel Christmas because
it would be much more aggressive in a way that maybe that it comes with a lot more baggage.
It also would fit way better into the whole economic framework because Christmas is the time that a lot of companies are able to survive. They're all based on the consumerism that comes with Christmas.
Right.
Oh yeah, totally.
Anyway, so there's one line that being more authentic. There's something that Towley says in the episode that I want to get your thoughts on. He's telling one of his customers about the different levels of weed membership, and he says there's Tegrity, Tegrity Plus, and Tegrity Elite, but you don't want to be Elite because Elite's got no Tegrity.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite lines in the episode.
I thought
the first time I thought maybe it was just I thought it was like semantically it doesn't have the word Tegrity, but then no, he says Tegrity Elite. I thought maybe it's a way of saying it'll create more demand by saying you don't want it, but I just thought it was more.
I judge the Marxist box and all of these critiques of consumerism as just another way to inspire consumerism.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even think that. I just thought it was sort of like the argument being just that's a good way to put it. Like you have these things, right, that basically the same people who buy the idea of like X plus awesome edition package thing generally are the same people who, don't like rich people don't buy like the weird super hyper advertised like extra X plus super edition stuff. Like they just buy like the bespoke version or whatever. That shit's for the people who like actually like that shit. It's advertised as the thing for rich people, for non-rich people to buy so they can feel rich.
They're saying that elites ain't got no integrity. It's kind of one of those things like, fuck the coastal elites. We are real people, and you are real too because you have integrity.
Internally, I think they're just pointing out that whole framework is just internally hypocritical.
But it's like let's use that as let's connect the metaphor to like Uber or something, where you've got like the Uber Plus or Uber Lux or whatever. not Michael Lux, but. Does it hold up? Like, I mean, don't wealthy people prefer to be like have the luxurious option?
Don't super elite people just like have a?
That's like the Rolls Royce like
kind
royalty.
of making fun of people of companies that sell themselves as something that's not hyper capitalist.
Yeah,
that's probably the best reading.
Like by saying if you consume this version of our product, you're no longer integrity. Like, it's just the contradict. He's just saying,
See, like those kinds of things.
yeah.
You've just got like, it's almost like they've commodified and they've appropriated the whole tegrity term. Obviously, like, you know, when he started Tegrity, I'd say that Randy almost had I mean, although it was very cynical, he had some form of tegrity. Like, he was at least living on a farm. It was small and bespoke. And then once he scales it, of course, like,
Right.
Well, like, what do you guys think? So this is part of the thing that made this episode, being able to tell when they were talking about the world, when they were talking about the show.
Yeah, I want to talk about the bike parade next, because I feel like there are a number of metaphors wrapped up in here. And I think we could talk about the thing where they're talking about the show, because so there are two metaphors that I think the bike parade is playing with. One is the bike parade is a stand-in for capitalism or the rat race, and then secondly, the bike parade is the show. So let's talk about the bike parade as the show first.
They were talking about, you know, they were like when they were like, are we just going to keep making assholes of ourselves? It was definitely felt like them saying, we don't want to make this show anymore and we're bored of it, for sure.
I thought, that's very sad to me if that's the case. But yeah, I have the whole quote written down. They say, how come everything out there gets canceled, but it's of ourselves? And then they say, no, the problem is when it comes to outrage, your average person doesn't give a shit unless it has something to do with them. That's right. All the other people who have been That's right. We've been selfish. We can't get the parade canceled for us. We have to do it for all the other people who have been canceled. But Ryan was hinting at in his voicemail is that this makes no sense within the context. This is one of those examples of there's no text, just subtext. It doesn't even work on a basic textual level, especially later when Cartman says that the bike parade is nihilistic and out of step with progressive thinking. Although now that I'm saying that, maybe not, because if we are to say that the bike parade is capitalism and they're saying that the bike parade is nihilistic because it causes people like Bud and allows him to be more attractive to women and stuff, that's super nihilistic and also out of step with progressive thinking, because I guess maybe the idea that the more money you have, the more girls like you is not progressive. Maybe it works on that level, but as you can tell, I'm having trouble parsing it through.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that being a moment that's like super outside the episode, in a way that was kind of bummed me out and kind of felt it was like both sad in the way Amanda described it, of like, oh, these guys don't like making their show anymore, but it was also kind of smelling their own farts a little bit, especially with the end. It felt to me like they were like, someone's got to like do this thing that we're doing, because the end is like the deduction from that scene to the end scene, right, is that the difference between them and everyone else who's gotten canceled is that like they have tegrity, right? Like even the song at the end is like the song's about the Colorado towns, about South Park.
Is it that they have tegrity, or that they know that they don't have tegrity, whereas everyone else thinks that they do?
Well, I think that it's that they don't, because it's that, or they think they do have at least some form of tegrity. I wouldn't say like, I don't think Matt and Trey are silly enough to think that they're like 100% beholden to no one or anything.
Well, yeah, I mean,
but
this
like,
is like
as they say, they're not sucking on Bezosian dicks. Like, they have some form of like freedom. I mean, to be totally frank, like they clearly have a lot of network freedom. They got Santa to say cunt on TV.
Yeah,
right.
Certainly.
Like, yeah. I didn't until I saw the headlines. It just kind of flew by me.
But this is, that speaks to a certain degree of freedom that they get to have. And so they clearly think there's some value in that. Knows how to do the thing.
See, I disagree with that. I think that ads always lie to you, or people who take ads are evil, and then it cuts to commercial. I think that South Park is they're famous for pointing out hypocrisy, but also pointing out their own integrity, unlike everybody else. But then at the end, it's tegrity weed that they're packaging, and SNL and all these shows, they might be smelling their own farts thinking that they're making the world a better place, but we at least know that we're not making the world a better place. We're just fucking around, and we might use the idea of making the world a better place, but then always undercut it by showing that, nope, we're just full of shit.
That's a smart reading. I like that.
Yeah, see, that's what I was talking about, this idea of like where the show talking about the show ends and where the show talking about the world starts, if that makes sense, because like parts of the race, at least for me, moments in the race and then the song don't super fit into like the show, and it does, and it's all very confusing to me. Like, I think that read you're giving makes sense. I just like, yeah, I thought the episode, if they wanted to get there were cleaner ways of getting there that weren't so fucking confusing.
I feel like it's somewhere in between the reads of Lux and Jared, where like they can be cynical about themselves because they also are like confident of that they are different and in some way better because they can, make Jeff Bezos an evil brain Star Trek person and whatever. So I think that like they are.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think those two positions actually are like pretty reconcilable.
So let's talk about, at least my thinking, I'm curious if you guys agree, of the bike parade being equated to capitalism or the rat race. And the thing that makes me think this is because it's the idea that they decide that we are going to try and get the bike parade canceled because we can't win. And the way that I think about this is, are they saying that people who are Marxist boxes are just bitching about capitalism because they didn't win the capitalism game? I know that might be sensitive for you two, but did you guys think that?
No, because Kenny's the Marxist kid and Kenny bails.
Yes. Well, but
So
yeah,
he
but no,
doesn't try to cancel the bike race.
no. But I'm saying the other kids. The other kids realize, all right, Kenny bailed. Now we're gonna lose. We're gonna look like fucking idiots. Should we continue to go and just lose, or should we just complain and try to get it all canceled?
I think the
Right, but
differentiation is like the
my-
Marxist box is more Kenny, and then the other kids.
Well,
are,
don't
yes.
like why. Like, because if, once again, the bike parade, the metaphor of the show is that the bike parade is the show, we should cancel the show because it's offensive. The shows don't, quote, win. I don't understand how that works with that. Like, the South Park, the show, is afraid it wouldn't win. What does that even mean?
This is where I feel like the metaphors started piling on top of each other, because at the same time, the boys wanting to cancel the show, the bike parade is, I feel like them taking one last shot at, outrage culture and making fun of like PC babies and saying that it's more like, I don't know.
God, that's so unnecessary that we've seen that. I mean, I think that it's done well. They had the one PC Baby song joke. Great. We get it. Move on. If that is all there is to it.
Because when they said, they said something like, that's the only reason people get outraged. You know what I mean? Like they basically said that people getting outraged are just making excuses, right?
Maybe this is the in between of the extreme Marxist side and the American socialism side, but like the kids, if you're only outraged if you think you can't win in whatever scenario it is, because Cartman is kind of advocating that everyone loses. That's sort of what.
Right, and that language of winning versus losing has nothing to do with a television
show.
No.
I don't think it has to do with the TV show. That's why I never really even thought about the parade as the TV show until that bridge scene, right?
Right.
But it's just messy. But there's something about like if you're not going to win, you might as well bring everyone down. I think that, and it might be unrelated to a bigger metaphor, but just that's the theme, obviously.
Yeah.
This whole outrage piece.
Sorry. Sorry, let me start that over. I had all kinds of gross shit in my throat.
Kalani, cut that.
Woo, everyone loves cigarettes. Anyways, I actually think so. I think there's something to what you're saying, Jared. I think that you're kind of right that like I think this goes back to one of my pet like beefs of this whole season, this distinction between like actual leftists and sort of like faux insincere leftism, right? And I think that's what Stan, Kyle, and Cartman are, right? Like Kenny's taking like a principled stand, same with the strikers and stuff like that. They're not, and so they're doing that kind of bad faith, shitty call out culture Tumblrism that I've complained about on this podcast 1,000 fucking times, without actually having an investment in like the real broader thing, right? They only see it as like a personal sort of like way of doing leftism of like shitty Tumblr and stuff like that.
Which felt like another callback to that episode that was entirely about that. Which one was that?
The Mr. Hanky one?
Maybe. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, it was sort of using the logic of that episode again, like a new context, and then also in the same context later.
Right.
And
and they even like make it very clear like how they feel about these kind of people when Santa Claus is like, he tweeted some inappropriate things, and then yells at them and leaves.
Well, I think when Stan says, the problem is that when it comes to outrage, your average person doesn't give a shit unless it has something to do with them. So I don't know. Is it maybe as simple as, I'm not in a good position in my life, so I'm going to just get angry at something. Oh, South Park over there just offended me or said something that I don't agree with, so I'm going to try and get them canceled. Is it that kind of... I'm trying to bridge the idea of losing the bike race to the show. I'm
I think
I'm trying.
I think that's the part that's like once you give up that part of it, it kind of makes a little more sense because it doesn't winning. The only thing I can connect to the winning side of it is that the parade is really only the town of South Park. They're the ones who are happy. Obviously, anywhere else in this show and in this world, you would have had Amazon is still fulfilling packages elsewhere. They're trying to ruin other towns,
right? But because
the little island is happy.
But because of the whole Butters thing, it seems very clear that there is like a rat race capitalism side to
the town
or to the parade.
To the parade, yeah.
Because
the parade, that's the source of it all. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and then that's what makes it even crazier as a metaphor, right? Because like, it's not a bike race; it's a bike parade, right? And the distinction being that like it's just a question of whoever has the fanciest bike wins by default.
Right.
It's not about being good at riding a bike or like doing a thing. It's just whoever makes the cool or has the coolest thing.
Is there any relevance to the fact that the bike parade is sponsored by Tegrity Weed, City Walk, and one other company?
I don't know. I saw the sponsor on the banner.
On the banner, it was sponsored. I felt like perhaps that was a detail that also ties it more to this reading of it being a stand-in for capitalism, and I think that's more of like Matt and Trey saying, "Fuck it, yeah, we're libertarians still. You know, we're gonna get sponsored and we're gonna sell this idea of Tegrity Weed. We're gonna
to sell this brand of show, whatever that's counterculture.
We're going to keep using counterculture and using it to." Capitalistic. Here's the bike parade. Good for you, Butters. You're getting all the chicks now because now you got a sweet ride. And good for you, Randy. You're going to make a shit ton of money now that you're selling Tegrity to people who hate progress.
Right. Well, I think that this goes to what Amanda said earlier about how they can simultaneously be both like very cynical and also kind of like we're special. Right. Like they're basically making like that's the same thing you're describing is if you like tilt your head 45 degrees, like a pretty damning critique of like capital and everything. Right. Like we have this dumb race in this town. The kid with the nicest bike wins. Like it's just sort of meaningless and stupid. It is nihilistic and opposed progressive values, which is basically what people criticize South Park for being, because like, and they're aware of that. And but earlier in the show, they're making all these arguments that are like pretty good about like worker dignity and like maybe it's not so great to have an Amazon, which are pretty classic sort of like leftist talking points. And so basically what they're doing is they're being like, yeah, we'll criticize all this stuff and we'll talk about all this stuff and whatever, but like we're still a fucking TV show.
And all those sponsors,
TV show.
All those sponsors are going to appropriate they're going to be very excited to sponsor and support that dissent, to support that parade that represents progress. Again, progress masquerading as it's just a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, man. Like capitalism provides the mechanisms for resistance until it can eat it.
And they're celebrating that.
Yeah. It's interesting.
It's a pretty
feel like outraged on behalf of humanity. But I was a little bit like, oh, come on. People aren't that shitty.
So
I'm inclined. I'm not. Yeah, I think Amanda's basically right that they were like kind of being kind of rude or like, you know, not just rude, but sort of being like really dismissive of people as a general category. Which kind of sucks, but also is kind of their thing.
Just misanthropes. It's like people are shitty. This is the best we can do. I mean, I find myself in that camp sometimes.
Yeah, but I think it's just one of these things where, like, at least for me, the show, you know, I'm not like, obviously, we don't look to, at least I don't look to South Park for like political advice, right? Or like how to view, like, for a worldview or something. But I think that it's interesting just in the way that, like, it's reconciling two really interesting things, and that's what we're getting at. That like it seems to be both like more sort of aware of what the problems of the time are than it's been for a while, and is willing to make fun of them from both the perspective of like they're funny because they're bad, and also they're funny because people suck or whatever. And then, but they're also still like unwilling to sort of admit that like, or like they're very happy to flaw in your face, so, like, but we're still also part of the problem.
Yeah,
which I just find so both endearing and frustrating.
You know what's weird is that from this whole two-parter, still the best part, probably the part that I find most artistically fulfilling and profound is definitely the 16 tons thing in the previous episode.
For sure.
Now, is that because like I'm projecting and that like, wow, I really identify, or this is something that I agree with, you know, this general sense of alienation that this is portraying? Is it simply that it's just aesthetically more pleasing? Is it that the creators of the show I feel like you're going to come away remembering the 16 tons thing.
It says it all, right? Like it's the
well,
consumer
I just feel like
worker,
that's
it's
even if that's not what they agree
montage.
with, if they don't believe that Jeff Bezos is evil and he's exploiting people and it's causing people to be really unfulfilled and alienated, even if that's not what they believe.
you do kind of walk away with that idea, right? Like, yeah, they have to ultimately he loses. Ultimately, they're liberated when they're free of that need for the fulfillment center, and they're free of the Amazon need.
Yeah,
and
I mean that's
he's
just
clearly,
where it gets messy again. I don't know.
Yeah, and he's clearly painted as a villain, right? Like he's killing Kenny, he's killing people.
Well, and also, and Jared, I was sort of surprised that you mentioned this line earlier without it setting off alarm bells. When Carbon says like, "How could we be mad at someone who gives us everything we want?" Like that's like some classic sci-fi villain evil bullshit.
Is it like a genie
in the way like you talked about
the
like Wall-E
Faust?
and stuff? Like the person giving you everything you want, like
It's bad for you.
why?
Yeah, but we don't
Like,
see
what do they get from that? Oh,
Right.
intense and immense power.
Yeah, but in Wall-E, we see how it's bad because these people have been infantilized and they're all fat fucks, whatever. Consequences of the workers, but not the consequences of the materialism. In general, it seems that they end the episode on still thinking that, oh, having shit is great.
We see a little bit of that in the
I
scoots,
think
right?
that-
The candy.
Well, I think that, or they're making the much more nuanced argument that the
Your consumer title is like you can't take time except that moment when they get home and there's an Amazon box on their doorstep.
and even if you distinguish between the two classes, they're still making a pretty clear point, or at least it reads to me that like the cost of us having all this stuff is that there's like, you know, it's like snow. Oh, the echo's happening again. Maybe.
You sound fine to us now.
Okay. If I sound fine to you guys, then hopefully it's it's gone now. Where we have this life that has these things that we want. The cost is that these people are suffering. Is that ethically okay or not?
I also feel like the tie-in between the kid is like, I want you to go back to work, which this also was a part that I thought Bruce will ultimately give up the fight and just settle for being worker consumers. I don't know.
Yeah, which we
that
saw
was, like,
which
the
we saw with
tragedy of it.
Gerald.
But like, I guess that was like the big tragedy of it. But I just think that we do definitely see and get an argument for the cost of the stuff and the way that we do with Wall-E. It's just a different argument. It's just a displaced form of suffering rather than like a direct one.
All right, let's talk about Let's talk about Kenny. So he says, I'm not doing the bike race. And Stan says, why not? He says, it's complicated. It has to do with an idea called commodity fetishism. And funny idea. My question to you guys, I mean, I only know a very base value that isn't based on the amount of labor that is put into it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the effectively, yeah, the shot's the easy, basically, yes.
Okay. Is the Butters bike peacocking thing, is that an example of this? Do we see an example of this? Or is just this kind of like Matt and Trey doing a shout out to like a stereotypical Marxist idea that isn't really present in the show?
I think it's probably more the second bike.
Mm-hmm. Or is it not just the fact that Butters is so excited when all these things come because now he feels like he's getting some sort of objective value out of this new sweet ride that he has, and it's able to get him all of these girls. And maybe I'm thinking too much into this, but obviously the girls don't care about the amount of labor that was put into those products that make the awesome Peacock bike. It's just like, wow, that's awesome. Those commodities are imbuing a sense of value to Butters. Or is that not quite what it's talking about?
No, I think that basically holds up, right? Amanda, would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Kenny's saying I can't do the bike parade because of commodity fetishism in parade, which seems accurate.
Especially with
but I
Butters.
also think that mostly it's just a goof.
Yeah, I think it's like, it's 2/3 just a shout out.
Do you think that there are some leftists in the writer's room, or that Matt and Trey are at least educating themselves more to these ideas? Because I feel like if you don't, the only reason I know what commodity fetishism is because I've listened to a lot of Zizek, and I feel like I wouldn't have been exposed to it if it weren't for that.
I mean, I think that if there's just a person who's taken the right philosophy class at the right time or whatever, or even just had like a Marxist-y phase.
It's funny to imagine, like,
Yeah.
It's a funny idea for a person.
Think we should talk about. So of course, there we do finally get to see Garrison at the very end
in handcuffs.
and he's got some handcuffs on, so they couldn't end the season without him. And I don't think there's much to say here. It seems like Matt and Trey are kind of making a bet that by the next season, Trump will be ousted. Did you guys get anything more than that?
Yeah, or just like the president's a criminal, lol.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
We had a lot of familiar
straightforward.
faces at the end there. We saw Mr. Slave, too, who was working at the... I think we actually got a voicemail about this. We saw Mr. Slave,
Yeah.
who was working at the Fulfillment Center. Now he's just happy grilling some wieners or something.
Everyone's so high.
Everyone's so high. I like that scene of all of the stoned eyes, just like, look at us. Look into our eyes.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest laugh of the episode was when he was like, "Are you high?" And they're like, "No,
No,
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 no." And
no,
he's like,
no.
"Well, I'm over here."
Yeah.
And they're all
My
facing
girlfriend
the
laughed
wrong
out
way.
loud at that
was
moment.
extremely good.
You know what I found weird? Were you guys confused by the fact that when Kenny attends the lecture that Josh the Marxist Box is giving, he looks bored, and then it cuts
Right.
to him and he's like accepted it? Like that seems weird.
Who's that, Kenny?
So Kenny is at
The
the
rally
lecture,
or the
and,
lecture?
and like it's like, he sighs like he's bored, and then it cuts, and then it cuts to him being like, guys, I'm a socialist now. I can't be part of this bike parade. Why? It just seemed like with that sigh, it seemed to indicate that he wasn't buying it, that he was like, this is all bullshit, this is boring.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
felt like another quick turn of the episode where the plot seems to be going one way and then it just reverses, like for convenience.
Yeah, there's like a missing beat.
Mm-hmm.
Like there
I
just could have
thought
been a
it
beat
was
where he was
wrong.
like, "Oh, it turns out I was won over by this thing I initially thought was boring."
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Seemed really weird.
He had access to all the stuff that he needed, right? They already had all their shit from Bezos. He had delivered them all
Yeah,
their goods. So
he
it wasn't
got it.
like
Yeah.
it was him resigning again that I can't afford to be.
And what
to
do we
win.
think about the Kenny getting killed by Alexa off screen, and then there's a coffin at the bike parade? What do we think about that?
Just
I
seems
mean, you know,
tender at all.
big companies kill union leaders.
Is there anything meta with the show? Because if we're saying that the bike parade represents the show, and oh my god, they killed Kenny is not something that really happens anymore, and now they're showing his death in the parade. Is there anything there?
Oof, I don't know. See, this episode
Yeah.
and is so unclear that like all of these references, I just like don't know what's on purpose and what's just like an oversight or what's like a kind of like a goof for goof's sake or anything. I don't know. Who knows anything anymore?
Yeah, it just felt like a big jolly moment. Like just had like a nice jolly conclusion that sort of wraps it up by, I don't know, just having it be a celebration. Didn't feel like there was a ton to read into it there.
But they gave us the kind of breadcrumbs to read into it. But yeah, it just seems like all the breadcrumbs, there's just too many crumbs, and the crumbs don't lead anywhere. Anyway, anything else you guys want to bring up before we move into the mailbag?
No.
Cool. All right, let's move into the mailbag. Lux, what you got for us?
All right. Well, do you have voicemails or are you just going to go straight to the emails?
Oh, yeah, let's do some voicemails. Jacob, what you got?
We can go voicemails. Sure, we already listened to Ryan. We've got some a lot of responses to people for the unfulfilled episode. So I'm going to
Well,
random.
hold on. Before you do that, if you want to send us a voicemail, 21-ELFGUT07 or 213-534-8807.
So good that you memorized that.
Finally.
So good.
I've only done it 15 times before I finally memorize it.
I can memorize credit card numbers. I'm like Cartman with the credit card numbers, but I cannot memorize phone numbers like that. All right, let's just randomly. I'm going to pick.
Ominous skill.
Aha. Okay, here's Austin talking about unfulfilled. Hello.
What's up, Wisecrack? Austin here. Just wanted to drop a couple of insights into the new episode of South Park, Unfulfilled. I thought it was really great. I actually had a slightly different take on the communist box. I wondered if perhaps, like Amazon had put this worker into a box known as like the label of consumer worker, because he speaks this Marxist rhetoric, he is labeled a Marxist box, and therefore no one listens to him. Like Randy just blows off whatever he says, and the reporter, instead of asking pertinent questions about what the box is saying, even as it directly relates to what the workers are going through, instead asks him about the box. Can you get out of the box? Is it hot in the box? Like, he's not really addressing what's going on. He's just addressing the box as an Amazon box or a communist box, in the case of Randy. I also wanted to clarify, one other point. Mr. Stotch isn't like taking the package onto the truck, letting it out and deliver it to his home. I just thought that was
even more alienating.
Cool.
Yeah.
As always, thank you so much.
Thanks, Austin.
Have a good week.
Thanks.
I'm into it.
Yeah, I think
I'll say
that
that
point
shit
makes
right
sense.
now. Yeah, that rules.
Okay, here's
One thing
It's like-
about just Marxism and communism in general is that I think that a lot of people, when they're reactionary towards it, like most modern day communists, they all agree, like, oh, 20th century communism, like, that's done. Like, the visions of communism that we have are ones that at least, require much more technological innovation. Nobody is arguing to go back to, like, the failed 20th century models of communism. And I think
Yeah, no. A lot of people think that modern communists are like Maoists, or there's many different modern perspectives on communism. Like Alex said in the last episode, like we're fighting for fully automated luxury gay space capital or communism.
right.
Right? Like it's a fully different thing now than it was in 1950 or whatever.
All right, what's next?
we've got No Name. Here's Anonymous talking about Unfulfilled.
Hey, really excited to hear what y'all have to say about what I thought was the funniest joke in the whole thing, but then it just totally either got missed or got cut. I loved the way
Yeah.
Communist Manifesto stuff, but anytime he tried to say something that was outside of the political norm for our country, the news reporter just moved over to, so what's it like inside the box? Like, the whole joke being that the news will not take anything seriously that goes against the grain of how it makes money. At least that's the way I read the joke, and I thought that at least one or two of you guys would read it the same way. Anyway, thanks again for everything.
Yeah, the news. I mean, if you're a host on your feet, you're just.
I'm into these voicemails. These people are getting it.
Yeah.
Here's Dylan from
Yeah.
St. Paul talking about Mr. Slave.
Hey guys, this is Dylan from St. Paul, and I just noticed something in the animation in the last episode with the fulfillment center when they first were introducing it. One of the first characters that you kind of see when they're walking by and they say, "Oh yeah, sure, everybody lives here or works here." Sorry, you see Mr. Slave, and I know someone predicted that maybe they'd bring back Mr. Slave, but I mean, obvious like the name. I wonder if that kind of was foreshadowing the overt kind of workers' rights violations happening, where the first person that you see is literally somebody working there who voluntarily subjects himself to like sadomasochism kind of stuff. So I just thought it was an interesting thing, and I think that it was probably done on purpose, that you see a literal Mr. Slave when you first enter the Amazon show.
Mr.
That is
Slave.
awesome.
Show.
Yeah, that rules.
All right, bye.
If they called him Mr. Slavery with extra steps, that would be awesome.
Yeah, man. Like, see, I like that this episode. This is where you were getting it before, right, Jared? That like a top level glance at this episode in general.
I mean, maybe
in a way that like is very at odds with the idea that there's like we're proud corporate guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If nothing else, I really just appreciate that Matt and Trey are not. If they're libertarians, they're not zealots. They
get it. Yeah.
They get it. They understand that there are problems, and they may gleefully say we're not going to do anything about it. But I would rather them kind of explore problems that perhaps they don't agree with than just shit on them.
Yeah,
completely.
without kind of even thinking twice about them. We got to hear more of your labor union songs that you sing in the shower at some point, Lux. Too. Maybe we'll do a special episode of just you singing
we can do that.
a karaoke episode.
Lux.
Occasionally, it would make its way in, but there was so much like so many layers of performative bit stuff to my rap career. My weird. We can talk another thing we can talk about at some point. Rap career that like. Most of the stuff was so hyper ironic that I didn't want to rap about things I actually cared much about.
Nice.
So you got a persona.
Extremely performative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so
Coming soon to a podcast near
you.
you.
Were kayfabe. Kayfabe
I was
rapper
extreme
Lux.
kayfabe for sure.
Yeah.
This is before I knew what kayfabe was, but for sure I was extreme kayfabe.
Here's one last voicemail from Jay from California, who I think she said she works in an Amazon fulfillment center, or used to.
Ooh.
Wow.
Hi, my name is Jay. I'm from California. I'm calling about the Respect My Authority podcast. I've left a message previously. You can feel free to ignore that. I was rethinking about this, thinking over this season. season 22, while ironically looking at a certain fulfillment center. But the theme of resignation and unfulfillment that South Park has been doing this season, I think, has been extremely clever. And adding to that, the way technology is not helping us in any way. I think we've seen all the ways that we were resigned in like the Man Bear Pig episode, and Sharon, resigning herself to the fact that school shootings happen, versus those who do find fulfillment, like the priest and Counselor Mackie and Randy and PC Principal. They move to a farm and destroy a vape store, or they kill a bunch of pedophile priests. And where PC Principal, he finally admits that he's not PC and he's able to have a good time with his family. So, canceled. Well, I guess we'll see. But just wanted to pass on my thoughts. We'll see how wrong I am at the end of the season. But love the podcast. Thanks so much, guys.
Awesome.
And I want to fucking see it. And I feel like always what happens during and after the revolution is always like the
World do it, kind of, and then you were like, we don't need to see this.
Westworld season 2. I don't even want to talk about it.
It's too depressing. I can't even go there.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks a lot for these voicemails.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, thanks.
Now
We should after we get through our emails and some of the Patreon messages, we should also kind of rank our favorite episodes this season too.
Well, I also think we should say if we think that our thesis that I think we came up with in either episode 1 or 2 about resignation does it fit with the season as a whole. But before we do that, let's save that to the end. Let's go into some of the Discord, which you guys can join our Patreon at wisecrackplus.com. We got some great individuals with a variety of opinions.
So many interesting folks. We love chatting with you guys on there. It's so fun.
And by the way,
4 isolated questions/opinions from the Discord.
And you can see all the pictures of Lux in there too that Alec has leaked.
And if I might make one last pitch, I did buy a Switch yesterday, and I did get Super Smash Brothers.
And you feel fulfilled.
And I feel fulfilled. And we're probably going to have a Wisecrack Discord Smash tournament in the future.
Hey-o.
So if that's not going to get you to join, I don't know what will.
Jared, I'll get you my code later, and we can start training. Brian and I accidentally copied the word today in there. Sorry, Brian/Brian today. I did a bad Brian. It's just Brian. Brian says, given the developments of Integrity Farms, do you all think that we'll continue to see continuity into next season?
God, hard to say.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Integrity continue. If like Randy stays on the farm and we keep seeing that hemp shirt, I wouldn't be surprised.
Seems to be something they like. I mean, they keep coming back to it.
It's been pretty lucrative story-wise for them. I wouldn't be surprised to see it.
Yeah, but maybe not, but my contrarian take, because I kind of agree with you guys, but what if the idea that like it becomes a new Amazon, it's like this giant retail thing, like is it going to have change, or is it going to be, they want to follow up like what that looks like at all? Or
Like wheat farm, like it becomes the new Amazon fulfillment center. That would be dark.
Well, I mean, that's sort of what they implied at the end, right? It's like, then what
Yeah.
is it? What if they're going to continue it? Like, don't you think it'll look like some kind of crazy weird thing?
You know, the thing that we know for sure is that Matt and Trey don't know, probably haven't even thought about it. And I think it just matters.
for sure.
It just depends on what the fuck happens in this next year.
I think
Really.
that's exactly right, because they haven't thought about it, and we know some animators on the show, or an animator on the show, and just they fly. We've seen 6 Days to Air, just they fly by the seat of their pants.
Yeah, I think this episode is evidence of that.
Totally.
No doubt. All right, we got one from Sword Hunter who says, do you think South Park is going to continue after this season? The end of the episode with the hashtag cancel South Park in the credits. Maybe they were canceling themselves because they feel that the show has done all that it can.
Aren't
I
they
hope
contracted
not.
through next season?
Oh, really? I haven't heard that.
I think they are, but I think people still also think that maybe there's not going to do that
Again,
one.
there's time to.
Dude, they love making their video games, and I don't think that they're going to stop. I mean, look, it's like, what, 2 months a year where they make a couple $1 million of, I don't think they're going to stop.
Today when I finished the episode, I was like, Jared, this would be like the most fun job ever to just like make South Park. That'd be
Oh, I
such
know.
a fucking
I mean-
dream. I guess 22 years later, maybe it gets old. I can.
See, like a series finale.
Yeah,
No.
it didn't really quite
No.
have.
That punch.
Yeah, there's so much baked into South Park in 23 seasons that like to do a series finale would really I don't think it would have been not like this. And the conclusions of the overall meaning. If you don't like something, try and get it canceled. And that the going after of actors for their tweets is probably a stupid thing to do. And also, I think they were able to dig at the fragility of anxiety. It seems like Cartman, who's famously been able to deal with problems, even if they are in nefarious ways, was unable to deal with the bike parade falling through for them because anxiety crippled him. But it went from a potential episode about economics, one about censorship, and I think we were all waiting for a conclusion to where they fell on economics, so kind of disappointed. What do you guys think about that, particularly the anxiety thing, I guess?
I feel like you read it really quickly, and I missed the anxiety part.
Okay,
I heard the Christmas part.
Because it's a long one, so I was trying to figure out where the part that I was meant to highlight is. Here we go. I think they were able to take digs at the fragility of anxiety. It seems like Cartman, who's famously been able to deal with problems, even if they are in nefarious ways, was unable to deal with.
It was an excuse for him, right?
I don't know, man. To me, that was just like, why are they doing this? You know, they're like, all right, I'm so anxious, I'm gonna shoot up this ski. I'm like, all right, so you're just trying to wrap it up, bring back everything from this season. These callbacks are not really necessary. That's kind of all I got out of it.
Yeah, it annoyed me.
Yeah, I thought it was sort of a waste of time. And so, much like Slow Mobius, we were all kind of disappointed.
Yeah, you know, I made a promise to Slow Mobius, and I told him I would read his theory for Unfulfilled, and as the Joker once said, I'm a man of my word. So, all right, this is pressured to raise their minimum wage to $15 an hour. The $15 minimum wage is a Bernie talking point or a social democratic talking point, and the fact that the people of South Park start making demands on Bezos is representative of Amazon being bullied to raise their wages. I think it's highlighted by the fact that the people of South Park are pissed that they can't get their packages and show that people are going to get mad when they can't have their cake and eat it too. The people of South Park don't understand the more demands they make of Amazon, the less they have what they want. Amazon has 540,000 employees. And if they all had to pay them $5 more an hour, that's $2.7 million an hour more Amazon has to pay. Also, I think that the history of changing face of immigration was a reference to the fact that if you make something about social Moonlight in the Shape of Water winning Academy Awards because the topic was about the struggle of marginalized people and it didn't matter the movies were good, it only mattered that there's a virtue signaling message. Honestly, Slow Mobius, I think that that could have been an interesting take on the episode. I think that what we ended up getting was not really as interesting as that. But I will say that Moonlight is a fucking awesome movie.
Moonlight is great.
Whether it's about marginalized people or not, and I have not seen The Shape of Water.
I'll also say $2.7 million is fucking chump change for Amazon.
That's nothing. I just looked this up. Jeff Bezos makes $28,000 every 10 seconds. No, he makes more than that every 10 seconds.
Oh my
like
God.
they can afford to
He can
pay
afford a
their
lot of
workers.
switches.
There was that one time when Jeff Bezos was like, I got so much money, I just don't know what to do with it. I guess I'll help colonize Mars. And it's like, Jeff Bezos, did you know that you could end world hunger 3 times and also still have money to go to Mars?
How much money would there have to be on the ground for it to be worth it for Jeff Bezos to stop and pick it up?
$1 million bill or something?
He of an entire country, basically.
Yeah, like if like someone was like, these checks all come from the Bank of Suriname, he'd be like, I'll take that.
Every time you do the math, it's like it's incomprehensible the amount of money. I mean, just,
He can't, like, it's impossible for him to ever lose $1.
yeah, probably impossible. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
sort of why I think that like arguments like that, like arguments about like, oh, if big businesses paid their people what people are asking for, they'd have so much trouble. Like the money would change, the margin would change. It's like, no, infinitely rich people would make slightly less infinite money.
Yeah.
But it's so fucking
which,
convenient.
Like, you know, there are different sizes of infinity, but the distinction is marginal.
You know, I did go to a physical store to get my Switch.
That's good.
I did not get it on
Hey,
Amazon.
me too.
Convenient, but only because there aren't all that many people in the stores anymore. Because I
Right.
was just able to go in.
Last season, when they're like, let's go to the creepiest place on earth. It's a Ross Dress for Less in South Park. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Was that last season or 2 seasons ago?
I think that was last season during the
Eyes on Amazon when we started this call.
Uh-huh.
So that's where I met
There we
Gilmore
are.
Eyes.
All right, well, we have one more from the Discord, which is from our friend Nabrix, who asks, do you think there was any... Oh, he asks about the Garrison thing, and if maybe... Sorry, I'll read the question. I thought we already talked about it, but maybe
I
there's a
like
little more,
the
'cause,
comment up top when he says when he has mixed feelings about the episode. Lex, you want to read that?
I just didn't pull that because it was after I made my questions call, but I'll look for it.
It's mixed-
because I've just going through me and Alec fighting about vests.
Yeah, so this is from Nabrix. This is from Nabrix in the Discord. He says, so I have mixed feelings about this episode. It was lots of fun, no doubt, but I was kind of surprised Cartman didn't actually shoot up the school, and he didn't prove his point about Black Panther, and a lot of the season's ongoing plot threads, PC babies, outrage, Mr. Hanky, etc., were mentioned but not expanded or concluded. This episode had a lot of feel-good moments and lines, but I can't help but feel unfulfilled.
Yes.
I thought that was very
Agreed.
apt.
Yeah, man, just
Mr. Hanky was kind of annoying, and then I definitely thought there was a lot of missing stuff, and it was just like, ugh. It was, yeah, there. sometimes they're so good at integrating the plots of the whole season, but this season was so wide that they couldn't possibly integrate all of them, and trying to made this episode a real mess.
Yeah. So let's talk about the idea. Like, do we feel...
Oh, real quick, I just want to give a shout out to an email from Quentin, who, I don't know if you guys remember Quentin's email from last week, but Quentin emailed to talk about that the town would be saved by Tegrity, and if Tegrity could save the town, which it did. So shout out to Quentin for being correct about that.
But did Quentin's idea
right on, Quinn. Quentin.
Did hit that much sense?
I think so, because he was saying their integrity isn't like their emotional integrity would save the day, not the weed. Which I think would have been more compelling. But still, you know, the two get conflated all the time by the show, and it's like sort of messaging. So I feel like it counts.
This is for you, buddy. After this now.
If we
love that guy.
That, so is the DOQQ for Quent.
In this season, does it hold up?
I think we do, because I think that the whole point of this last episode is basic relish in perpetuating the problem and then call into question whether it really is a problem or not. Right?
Right. Yeah, just wash it over, and everyone at some point is making a concession of some kind. How would
then Big Weed's going to become the next Amazon, and it's all going to repeat.
Yeah. I think the resignation stuff definitely holds up.
Since we're at the end of the season, how do you guys rank the episodes, if you guys remember them all? Last off, I remember in the airport, I could not get enough of it. And it was a beautiful episode. So Tegrity Farms, I think, would be number one. And
I really liked the climate ones, I think, for me.
They were great.
Yeah, didn't really end. Like, it was still just really good.
And I did like Dead Kids after all.
I laughed the most at Dead Kids. I think I liked the problem with the poo because I thought it was the ballsiest one. But yeah, I like the climate ones.
I started hating the scoots, and now it's the one I keep remembering the most. So I like the scooting.
Yeah, and I liked Unfulfilled. I mean, the 16 tons montage is maybe the best thing in the season. It's so good. It's so awesome.
It's great.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Emails, people saying that in the Stupid Spoiled Whore playset episode, there's a part where Butters is like digging something and he's humming that song. So that was a cool Easter egg. Thank you for pointing that out. Our authoritarian friends.
Yes. Thank you, authoritarians.
All right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up then. This has been Respect Our Authoritas season.
Hey guys, I'm going home.
It's been a lot of fun, guys. It's a really fun season. And hopefully we can get Ryan back here.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Yeah,
right,
thank you for listening and emailing and being our friends.
Yay. I love the soundboard. All right, everybody. Have a happy Christmas Kwanzaa. Whatever. Peace out.
All right. Peace, guys.